Hello everyone, I'm forecaster Jack Sillin here with the tropical weather discussion video for Monday, August 10th, 2020. Thankfully, the tropical Atlantic is fairly quiet at the moment. This is the only disturbance currently expected to have a chance at development, at least according to the latest Hurricane Center forecasts. This has been dubbed an Invest 95L, indicating that it's an area that we're watching for possible development, though it has not yet acquired the characteristics necessary to be deemed a tropical cyclone. The biggest one there is that it has not yet, at least as far as we can tell, closed off a center of circulation. So it needs westerly winds. Remember, this is all embedded within the easterly trade flow. So the trade winds will provide the easterly winds. The circulation around the wave axis right now will provide those southeasterly winds, those northeasterly winds. But really, we need a northwest wind, a west wind, and a southwest wind to close off this circulation. And there's no indication at the moment that has happened. That said, this storm is looking fairly healthy on satellite imagery this morning. You can see this persistent area of deep convection. So that's trying to take the spin or the circulation in the mid-levels of the atmosphere and bring it down to the surface. And then you can see that there's some cirrus sort of fanning up and out, indicating that this is starting to develop a little bit of an upper-level anticyclone. So all in all, the system is looking fairly healthy this morning. That said, this is the time of day, early in the morning, where tropical convection is at its maximum. So this is basically as good as it's going to get for the next 18 hours. And we would probably expect to see this convective activity wane as the storm moves west throughout the rest of the afternoon and evening as the thermodynamic environment becomes a little bit less favorable. So will this become Tropical Depression 11 or Tropical Storm Josephine? I don't know, maybe. Isn't that a satisfying answer? I really think it's about a coin flip right now, whether this can close off a center of circulation for a brief period of time, either today, tonight, or tomorrow. But what's certain is that the long-range future of this system is bleak. So you can see, here it is organizing down over the deep tropical Atlantic, and as it drifts over towards the Lesser Antilles, it basically fizzles into a nothing, a little open wave with barely any activity associated with it. Why is that? Well, you can see that the shear profile right now is favorable. Sitting over here in this region of light shear, but then as it moves west, you can see that it's starting to encounter this upper level trough that's oriented roughly from, honestly, all the way up from the Azores down to the Bahamas. This upper level trough is going to be imparting some southwesterly wind shear on the system, and that should lead it to more or less fizzle out. So this is pretty much what all of the ensemble guidance is expecting to happen. Only one ensemble member takes this north of the Antilles as a tropical storm before dissipating it north of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. So absolutely nothing to worry about here in the U.S. We might burn through another name en route to the Greek alphabet here, but otherwise really nothing to be concerned about. So moving a little bit farther ahead, what's the outlook for, say, the medium-term period? Before we get to the long-term, we'll look at the medium-term period. And the answer is pretty much we're not expecting much to happen. There are waves, of course, that are coming off of Africa, right? So here's 95L, right? Here would be the next wave, but that doesn't really do anything. It sort of fizzles into this trough. So we'll have to watch. This seems to be the next, strong wave to emerge off of Africa in a little under a week. We'll see. Maybe that becomes another tropical storm, but it's probably headed up and out. Although we'll see how this Bermuda High evolves. But so this would be the next storm to watch, right? Whether or not it's something that can actually make it all the way over here as a feature that's worth worrying about, I highly doubt it. Remember, the Atlantic Basin is still fairly unfavorable for development, so that system would be dealing with this trough right here and some severe wind shear. So the Atlantic Basin is still fairly unfavorable. And why is that? Well, we can look to our sort of favorability diagram here, I guess, which shows this big pulse of suppressed convective activity moving from the Atlantic into Africa. And when that happens, we really look for Atlantic tropical cyclone activity to slow down. There's this weak little period of favorability. Notice that that's located exactly where 95L is, so it's getting this brief boost basically tomorrow into Wednesday. It's going to have this brief Kelvin wave boost, but that's on its way out relatively quickly. And then as a whole, the basin is going to be sheared pretty strongly because you can see this big pulse of enhanced convection that's moving into the Central American region, far western Caribbean. This is actually going to favor the development of a number of tropical cyclones in the eastern Pacific. And when that happens, all that air rises up through the atmosphere, hits the tropopause, spreads out, and you end up with a bunch of westerly wind shear over the Atlantic, basically from the outflow of those eastern Pacific hurricanes. And we're going to get several of those likely in the medium-term period. Because remember, this is where the upward motion is most favored for disturbances to start developing, and then it's this zone right here between this upward motion and downward motion that's most favorable for the lack of shear. So you're going to get these robust disturbances, then they're going to move westward into this region of very low shear, and they're going to develop into hurricanes out here in the eastern Pacific. So all that to say is that this upcoming period, roughly starting middle of this week and then moving towards August 21st or so, looks to be fairly quiet here in the Atlantic. This is very welcome news, of course. So take this time to sort of prepare, relax, rest up, because once we move into the longer term, that region of enhanced upward motion currently expected to bring this outbreak of hurricanes into the eastern Pacific, it's going to be moving right into the spot that we don't want to see it for Atlantic hurricane activity, or rather that we do want to see it if we're looking favorably for Atlantic hurricane activity. And once it gets there, between August 21st and August 26th, say, we're going to expect, this suppressed phase of the Kelvin, or the MJO Kelvin circulation, to move into the eastern Pacific. It's going to shut down activity there. We're going to have this low shear zone. Remember, this is the low shear zone right here between the upward motion and the downward motion. That's going to move right smack dab in the middle of the Atlantic, and then it's basically going to just park there for the rest of the peak season, climatologically speaking. So this is going to be a very busy period. There's no reason to believe that we won't have numerous hurricanes in the Atlantic. There's no reason to believe that at least some of those won't threaten landfall on the East Coast. This is basically all the indicators are pegged to the high activity side of the dial here. Which means that it's especially important that you take a few moments in the next week to 10 days or so while things are still quiet to really brush up on your hurricane plans, make sure that you're prepared, because while of course we can't forecast where individual storms will track a month or two from now, so there's no reason to be specifically worried about a specific storm. What we can say with high confidence is that the odds of a hurricane impact to the U.S. Are going to go up significantly as we close out August and move into early to mid-September. So, and this is, of course, what we would expect based on just climatology, right? The peak of the season is usually September 10th, and this is when climatology is, the climatological state of the ocean and atmosphere is most favorable for hurricanes, and you can see that it's getting a substantial boost from the intra-seasonal forcing as well. So, bottom line, it's quiet in the Atlantic right now. It's likely to remain that way for the next 7 to perhaps 14 days. And then we're going to expect a significant uptick in activity heading into late August to early September. So take a few minutes now to brush up on your hurricane plans. Make sure you're ready for whenever a storm happens to head your way, be it next month or next year or next decade. You never know. All right, that's it from me for now. Thanks so much for watching.